What is happening, everybody? So, David Parrish posted up a really cool topic of discussion, and that is the original Gen 3 Hemi. Now, to understand why that engine is so cool, you almost have to put it into a historical perspective, and although it's not that long ago, you've got to look at it in terms of the landscape that that engine was originally released into. See, at that point in time, the V8 just really didn't have too much going for it in terms of naturally aspirated platforms. Basically, you had about a best of around 250 to 300 horsepower to play with if we're just talking about a normal truck or SUV, maybe a passenger car. But really, aside from that, there really wasn't a lot going on in the world of naturally aspirated V8s. Now, of course, you had the Corvette making about 350, and of course the Z06 making over 400 in its last introduction with the LS6. But for the time, that's about the best you could hope for. Now, of course, Ford had the supercharged 5.4 in the Lightning and the 4.6 in the Cobra, but really, those are specialty cars and they don't really, fit into the conversation. So what Dodge did with that Hemi, and I say Hemi loosely, you have to understand this is more of a marketing trick. Yeah, it's not a true Hemi, but better for it really, because with the extra quench area provided by the cylinder head design, you now have an engine that makes better low-end power than the original Hemi could have with its original true hemispheric cylinder head. But yeah, it's just semantics. The basic architecture is still the same, and because it's the Hemi, it was the reintroduction of the name. More or less, that architecture meant deity status for Mopar fans, and for that to come back really in any way, shape, or form was monumental for the time. But the key here was the power that that engine made. In a world where basic American V8s were only making around 300 horsepower, the Hemi dropped 345 on the masses. And what that basically meant was that your work truck, and in subsequent years, your passenger cars, and even some of your Jeeps, could benefit from having the same horsepower and torque as a base model Vet. That's pretty damn cool if you ask me. And really, that engine set the stage for what we have to enjoy today with variable cam technology. That 5.7's gone up to over 370 horsepower in the Challengers and Chargers, and just at 400 horsepower for the trucks. Of course, with different stroker applications, you now have the 392, which is pretty much setting itself apart as an American muscle car. That led into the Hellcat platform, and then now into the Demon, and they all share their roots with that original Gen 3 Hemi. And if you look at it from today's standpoint, yeah, 345 horsepower, 375 torque doesn't seem like a lot. But again, that engine is upgradable. Ported heads, a camshaft, stroker crank, different intake manifold, and now you're looking at an engine that is capable of well over 500 horsepower. Pretty reliably too. So yeah, the only drawback to that platform, if you want to call it a drawback, well, it really wasn't offered in a sports car when it was originally released. The Challenger wouldn't be released for another, 5 years or so. And because that engine was only offered in a heavy platform like a truck, 300C, a Magnum, or one of the larger Jeeps, yeah, the aftermarket may not have gravitated towards it as quick. Even still to this day, they don't. But there are ways around it. And although they can be a bit pricey, for those that live by the adage that no car, or Mopar or no car rather, it's the only engine platform to build from. So when you look at it in that context, yeah, it's a very special engine. It is upgradable, but it does one thing better than any of the other engines could, and that was to bring excitement back to Dodge at a time where nobody really had too much reason to be excited. And you can't help but remember, if you were around back then, those commercials, that guy hanging out of the truck, hey, that thing got a Hemi in it? Well, yep, today a lot of folks can say, yes, it does. And even back then they could, because you have to remember, today's Hemi exists mainly because of the success of that Gen 1. Look at it like this. For the trucks, if a V8 engine was optioned, because at the time the Hemi was an option over the 4.7 liter, oh, well, nearly half of the V8 engines that were sold were the Hemi. And so, of course, Dodge ran with that. And the beauty of that platform is that not only does it still live on in the later generations of today, but we have cars like the SRT 392, the Hellcat, and the Demon to basically look at and see what kind of potential that engine had. And really, it's a shame that we could be looking at the end of the Hemi as an actual platform in the coming years. I just hope that they keep it around long enough for a few more folks to enjoy. At least, I think it's slated to be canceled sometime around 2021, sometime around there. But, you know, for about a 17-year run, can't say that that's too bad. Can't wait to see what Dodge has next to offer, but I don't think that it'll ever be as exciting or at least as marketable as that original Gen 3 Hemi is, or was at least at its time. So, at any rate, those are my thoughts on the original Gen 3 Hemi. Have a lot of respect for that engine, and although the aftermarket doesn't follow it too much, again, like I said, cam swap, little head porting, and an intake manifold to get that thing on par with anything that any of the other manufacturers have to offer. So if you've got one, take pride in it, because you've got a car with an engine that really did set the benchmark standard for its time, just in terms of the power and the torque and just the name and what it meant to Mopar fans back then. That's a wrap on this video. I hope you guys are having a great one. Medios.